Well, here we are. Spring is well underway. We've had a couple late April snowfalls, but nothing that's really stuck around too long. So figured I would end the season with this video, just to recap some of the mini snowcat projects that I've had underway. And so yeah, it's been pretty jam-packed with different projects that I've had going. The biggest one, of course, has been replacing the tracks with these new tracks here, and you know, there's been some challenges in getting them functional, but I think finally at the end of the season here we've landed with something that works really well. I'm quite pleased with how everything's come together. And so originally we had they were pneumatic tires up front, and they really weren't up to the task. They kind of got beaten up pretty quickly, and so what I ended up doing is replacing all of the tires with these foam-filled, or I guess solid foam tires, which worked better, but still that front tire there, it takes quite a beating. There's a lot of load just from the weight of the machine bearing down on that front wheel, the track tension, the preload tension on the track, and then the impact load. All of those combined, I'm figuring we're probably looking at right around 800 pounds of load on that front wheel. And so any of the other tires with the 300-pound rating just couldn't stand up to that kind of wear and tear. So I ended up switching to this. This is a steel wheel with rubber on it. It's called rubber on steel. It's 10-inch, just like the other tires. It has a 1-inch bearing, but it is significantly stronger. So it has a weight rating of about 2,000 pounds. So we should be well within its capacity. The other tires don't see anywhere near as much load. The rear tire, it's rated a little bit higher than the 10-inch ones. It's a 12-inch tire. It has a load capacity of about 600 pounds, so that's really not an issue. That tire stood up really well, just aside from a little bit of scraping on the sidewall from the track cleats, but all in all, it's done quite well. I'm quite pleased with the design. Swapping the tires out hasn't been as much of an issue as I thought it was. Basically, you release tension on the rear tensioners, jack up the side of the machine, and you can pop out the tires in about 5 minutes. So really easy swap process for that. And yeah, like I said, this is kind of the landing point for the tracks, and I'm quite pleased with that design. And so moving on, a couple weeks ago I did a little build project for these this plow up front here. A bit of a hodgepodge build, but it turned out really well actually. I was quite surprised with the capability of the machine to push snow. And so in a moment I'll switch over to that build video and you can see how I put this together. This is actually a repurposed 3-point blade from my tractor, and really this was a $0 build and it turned out fantastic. Wanted to move on to something a little more, I don't know, maybe fun, not really necessary, but nonetheless another project for the snowcat. And so the plan here is to take this is my category 1 3-point hitch rear plow, rear blade, and to basically take the blade, fabricate a new kind of arm and mount that will interface with these toe rings here. They're substantial enough that they can act as a pivot for the blade, and come up with some kind of plow blade for the snowcat. Right, so I've got the 3-point hitch blade rotated around. The cool thing about this particular design is that basically the blade rotates on that center bolt, and there are a couple of holes basically drilled in an arc that allow you to tilt the blade in a particular direction, or you can spin it entirely around and use it as a pushing blade. And so that's what I'm hoping to do with this blade. I'm not going to use the 3-point hitch part because I still want to use that in the summertime with the tractor. And so basically the plan here is to build a new piece of this channel. This is just 1.5 by 3-inch channel. I have a couple pieces of that type of stock laying around, and then rather than having it end on a piece of flat bar, I'm gonna bring it into a piece of round bar like I have for this little tow hitch here. Basically let it fit into those eye bolts and then just pin it in with a couple of 3-point pins, and there'll be a little bit less slop, but basically it'll come tight to each of the sides here, and then that'll be basically what allows it to pivot. And then all I really need to do is come up with some plan to actually do the lifting and lowering of the blade. Now, hydraulics is not out of the question. I can add an auxiliary like power takeoff to one of the track drive pumps, but even though I have a cylinder and I have that auxiliary pump that I can bolt on there, directional control valve and hoses and whatnot, that can get expensive pretty quickly. So I was trying to think of just a simple way, maybe a winch mounted on the front of the new kind of arm, and then just put like another eye bolt further back right on the lower part of the cab frame, and I think that would be enough to lift the blade up and down and be a little more cost effective. So I'm gonna go ahead and get this 3-point hitch section unbolted and start to come up with a plan. Well, for an impromptu build, things are going fairly well. I managed to get the bar that is going to fit into those two big eyelets fabricated, and basically, a little hard to see, but there's a line right there, and basically that line indicates how far this bar needs to move over in one direction for that end to clear the eye bolt. And so really that's what determines how far out these diagonals can be set out there. Basically I cut them with a hole saw, and I will weld them in place there. And I did the same for the central tube, and so that's just going to get welded in around there. On the blade end, I drilled a 1-inch hole through that tube and then a 1/2-inch hole. And basically that's what locks the blade in place depending on which direction you want to pivot the blade, and so you can kind of use it as a grater to push like snow or whatever to one side or the other. So that's all worked out really well. This is basically ready to weld up now, but I still haven't figured out what the plan is to lift this blade, whether I'm going to do a winch. If I do a winch, basically there is no positive pressure to kind of use the blade for scraping. Basically you're just stuck with whatever weight of the blade to push it downward. If I did some kind of a rigid, like a cylinder or something in there, then I could get a little bit of downforce. I could actually load the front of the blade a little bit more, use it for really scraping. Add a hydraulic cylinder later on. I can. That's not an issue. So I'm gonna take this apart, get some of these surfaces ground ready for welding, and then I'm gonna weld up around the square tube and around the two diagonals. Well, we've got a functioning blade. I decided just to give it a shot with the winch first of all and see how well that worked out. I took the snowcat winch apart, wasn't too bad, and just made a new plate, welded it onto the blade arm, and I just put this little tab here, and then I looped the cable back through just up to an anchor point up there, and hopefully that's gonna be okay for now. I mean, if I decide to really use this a lot more, I mean, there's plenty of room for improvement, but this is almost like a proof of concept right now, just to make sure that you know, what I'm thinking is actually going to be suitable for like the machine. Make sure the machine can even handle this, make sure that the mounting geometry is going to work out okay, make sure the blade's going to hold up. So This works really well, actually. it's just right. I played with angling the blade. The snowcat handles that no problem. Just overall, yeah, it works really, really well. If anything, it's been a good test to see how well the tracks will hold up, and so far they've been taking that little bit of a beating there. Yeah, so I'm gonna basically say that the plow is a success. If there's anything I would change on it, the only thing is I need to maybe put some kind of marker on the fronts, because when you're in the cab, you cannot line of sight, like from up there, like you cannot see this thing when it is on the ground. So a little tricky for operating it, but aside from that, it's not too bad. As far as like potential improvements, adding hydraulic cylinder and controls, I would say that would be something that I would definitely consider doing. A couple of quick disconnects up front to be able to unhook that, pull this off, and then put whatever else in between those two eye bolts there. But yeah, this is pretty slick actually, so I'm looking forward to using this a little bit more. The nice thing about the way it is right now is basically to remove it, I just need to drop the blade down, unhook that quick link connect there for the cable, pull those two pins out, unplug the winch, and it'll basically be ready to just drive the snowcat normally. So that's a nice feature, that this can come off really easily. It's easy to handle. I can bring it with me, I can leave it in the trailer if I need to do any kind of grading work or plowing, put it on the front of the cat quickly, and yeah, good to go. Snow with the mini snowcat is actually quite a bit of fun, and it actually puts some good use to the machine without just using it for recreation. It also serves a pretty good function. So all in all, it was a really good build. I see a lot of room for improvement and some future videos on that. But for this season, we're going to leave it as is, and likely get this unit parked right away, get it tarped up so it doesn't get too weathered, and we'll get on to some great videos next season. But anyway, thanks for watching, and I've got a lot of other interesting videos coming up, maybe not snowcat related, but still some fabrication and other build type. So thanks for checking out this video, and we'll see you soon.